Good evening. I'm Ed Maurer, chairperson of the Great Stone Viaduct Society. We're excited to have you here to learn about our project of restoring the bridge in celebration of the 150th anniversary of the building of this bridge. Today we're going to hear from Jonathan Wren from MS Consultants. They are the consulting firm that is doing the design of our bridge restoration, new bike trail, and elevated platform that will be on top of the bridge. This is being done in conjunction with a grant from the Ohio Department of Transportation, which will allow us to build a observation platform, a walkway, and a bike trail that will run all the way from the Great Stone Viaduct that you see here to my right to 26th Street for the pleasure of the citizens of Bellaire. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Jonathan Wren with MS Consultants, and our team is here to present on the Great Stone Viaduct Rail to Trail project. The image you see in front of you is the Great Stone Viaduct in Bellaire, Ohio. And today we'll talk to you about how we are repurposing this railroad structure and the associated approach rail alignment to a rail to trail project. Our agenda for today is as shown in the slide. We will do brief introductions, do a brief project history, talk about the scope of the project, the environmental clearance, the design elements of the project, the schedule, and then we will adjourn. The image on the right shows a view of the viaduct to the west from atop the viaduct. Again, my name is Jonathan Wren, and I'm the project manager for MS Consultants. Also presenting to me with us today is Rachel Ponin, our environmental planner, and Chad Boyer, our lead drainage and design engineer. The owner of the project is the Great Stone Viaduct Historical Education Society, and a primary stakeholder is ODOT District 11. They provided significant funds to the project and are also performing plan reviews and will do construction inspection. A brief project history. In 1871, the Great Stone Viaduct was constructed by the Baltimore and Ohio Railroad as an approach to a bridge over the Ohio River to West Virginia. In 1976, it was placed on the National Historic Register. In 1996, CSX, as owner, discontinued use of the structure. Then in 2015, it was purchased by the Great Stone Viaduct Historical Education Society. In 2017, ODOT awarded a grant of $1.9 million to rehabilitate the bridge and convert it to a rail to trail project. In 2020, MS Consultants was selected by the Great Stone Viaduct Historical Education Society to provide engineering services. And then the plan is for the construction to occur in 2022. The image on the right shows what the trail looks like today as you look to the east towards the viaduct. The scope of the project generally includes the rehabilitation of the existing stone arch viaduct with a new concrete walkway, railing, and overlook/turnaround. Conversion of the former CSX rail line to an asphalt shared use path from its beginning at West 26th Street to the viaduct. A trailhead and parking lot at West 26th Street, and a stamped concrete plaza cap beneath the viaduct. Here's our project site plan. This plan sheet shows the beginning and ending of the project. On the left of the sheet, where the number 1 circle is where the project begins and where the parking lot will be constructed with access to West 26th Street. The alignment of the former railroad then follows to the east along the rail corridor parallel to Hamilton Street. Around circle number 4 is where the rail trail portion ends and where the viaduct begins. And then number 5 indicates the viaduct itself. I'll now pass it over to Rachel to talk about the environmental clearance.
Thanks, Jonathan. So this project, including a new parking lot, a shared use path, and a walkway on top of the stone arch viaduct, is partially funded by an ODOT grant. The project needs to comply with several other environmental laws to use the ODOT funds. As an example, 3 of the many laws are the National Historic Preservation Act for Cultural Resources, or Section 106, the Clean Water Act for Water Resources, or Section 401 and 404, and the National Environmental Policy Act for overall enhancement of the environment. This slide is going to cover the National Historic Preservation Act. The former B&O Railroad Viaduct, aka the Stone Arch Viaduct, is listed on the National Register of Historic Places. The image you see is from the letter provided by the Ohio Historic Preservation Office saying this is an official listed resource. In March of last year, the Ohio Historic Preservation Office reviewed the preliminary plans and how the project could impact the viaduct and concluded that there would be no effect on the viaduct itself. The project is designed to sit on top of the stone arches and doesn't modify them. That's how it's a no effect. Additionally, we have a commitment with the Preservation Office to review the final plans, for them to review the final plans when they are done this month. The Clean Water Act is also needed for environmental clearance. In order to meet the requirements of the Clean Water Act, which is Section 401 and 404, all of the small streams and possible wetlands were observed and evaluated along the proposed route of the shared use path. Similarly to the goal of all projects, this project was successfully designed to avoid impacts to streams. And since there are no wetlands found, there was no waterway permit required. The photo you see on the right is taken where one of the stormwater outlets comes out of the existing retaining wall. MS Consultants was able to determine that it is just stormwater and not anything pertaining to a jurisdictional stream. And because of that, no streams or wetlands were included, and that's why no permits were required for this project. The National Environmental Policy Act is the overall environmental clearance for the project to move forward, limiting all environmental impacts in the project area. ODOT is authorized to give approval, which means that it doesn't have to go to a federal agency. And ODOT issued the NEPA approval in January of this year. The primary concern of this project was hazardous regulated material because of the previous land use of a railroad corridor and the possible contamination that could have resulted from that use. But per the agreement with the CSX Railroad, all soil is to be considered contaminated and cannot be removed from the former CSX property. So in addition to not removing soils, the project plans have to include measures to prevent contact with the original soil. The soil on top of the viaduct and underneath the arches have both been contaminated. So both areas will need to be capped to prevent contact. We'll discuss that in a later slide. But for now, I'm going to throw it over to Chad Boyer for the design process.
Thank you, Rachel. The design process started with a topographic survey of the trail corridor from West 26th Street to the end of the project on the viaduct between Oak Alley and Guernsey Street. There were a number of site visits made by the design team and meeting with the Historical Society to walk the alignment and determine which existing features would they like to incorporate into the design, as well as potential thoughts on how to best preserve the historical structure in the design process. Utilities were contacted as part of the due diligence for the project as well, and field located prior to the survey needs. as well as some soil testing that had taken place on site prior to the project beginning. All of this information was then compiled into a digital base map and a computer drafting software, and that allowed the design team to start with the preliminary layout of the trail alignment and all of the stormwater features and site improvements for the area. Some of the design considerations, while not all of them, include balancing of the cut and fill. As Rachel mentioned, the site, the contaminated soils cannot leave this former CSX property. So the cut and fill needed to be balanced across the site, incorporating stormwater drainage features like culverts and ditches, stormwater management features, as well as developing construction costs for the various submittal phases of the project. So this photo shows the parking lot and the terminus there at West 26th Street. The entrance will be sort of where the tire marks are on the left photo, with the trail beginning in the area where the sign is on the right-hand photo here. So this is a image of what the parking lot is designed to look like. This is what the construction plans that will be provided to the contractor will look like for the parking lot layout, with entrance off of West 26th Street, and then the trail terminus at the parking lot on the right-hand side of the sheet. This is an example of what some of the stormwater features would look like. This is a drainage culvert that's going to carry flow underneath a section of hillside between two wall sections along the trail. This is very indicative of what the rest of the project would look like as far as stormwater conveyance goes. There are a number of culverts as well as streamside or trailside ditches on the north side of the trail for the length of the alignment. This is a vegetated filter strip for all intents and purposes. From the surface, it's going to look just like the grass in your yard or any other grass along a roadway feature or trail feature. From an engineering standpoint, these 5 of these locations along the trail project will handle the required stormwater treatment from the EPA's perspective for the rest of the project. This is part of the plaza design. The plaza will extend from west of Hamilton Street over to Oak Alley. The plaza would extend both on the north and south sides of the viaduct, as well as under the arches. It will be a stamped concrete that is stained and will allow access from the Oak Alley area under the arches to be able to view those, as well as hold events in the future. This is the trail alignment. The trail itself will be 14 feet wide and constructed of asphalt, which can be seen on the detail on the next slide. So here's that detail with the ditch on the left-hand side, the 14-foot wide trail, and then the wooden bike railing that will be alongside the trail for its entirety. And with that, I'll turn it over to Jonathan for the work on the viaduct.
Thanks, Chad. So in the photo on the left, you can see a view in the viaduct in the distance. So we're transitioning from trail to viaduct in this area. And then on the right photo, you can see the actual viaduct, the existing condition, and where Hamilton Street is, which abuts the viaduct for a short segment of roadway there. So the viaduct walkway portion will extend from this location and will continue to just before Oak Street. And we'll show you that in a plan sheet. Here's one of our details showing the transition from the trail to the viaduct. So you can see in blue, it says begin viaduct. So we're tapering down from a 14-foot wide trail to a approximate 9-foot walkway on the existing viaduct. These are our typical construction drawings for the bridge. So just generally speaking, since the detail is small, on the upper portion of each of these sheets is the plan view looking from above, and on the lower portion of the plan sheets is the elevation view showing the profile of the viaduct. As Rachel had mentioned earlier, the only work that we're doing to the viaduct structure itself is the walkway on top. So to mitigate the effects to this historic resource, those were the limiting elements of our project. Chad did mention we are going to have the plaza underneath, but that was not an impact to the structure. And then on the left is the same type of plan sheet. This is the third of 3 of those drawings. You can see in small detail where there will be the viaduct walkway will end before the viaduct itself ends. So there will be a 16-foot diameter or square turnaround. The railing will be placed around the perimeter of that turnaround, affording safe viewing and overlook of the Ohio River Valley. And then the photo on the right shows the existing viaduct today. And this section shows our typical section. On the left is our construction detail showing how we are going to add a reinforced concrete walkway with concrete curbs and metal railing. The photo on the right shows again the existing viaduct as it is today. And this sheet shows what the ornamental railing will look like as viewed from the side. So this is the elevation view. So you can see there are vertical posts every 10 feet. There's top and horizontal rails, and there are vertical pickets in between the posts. The ornamental railing will be painted with a black matte finish. And concluding there with our design discussion, we now show the project schedule. On the right is the milestones for the project, which include the environmental document approved, for example, as Rachel mentioned. And this is the ODOT schedule from their Ellis program. And then on the left is some of the significant dates. We started the design work, including the field work, as Chad mentioned, back in April of last year. Final construction plans will be complete, in June of this year. The sale date of November the 18th is when the contractor's bids will be opened and a low bidder will be identified. Construction will start in April of 2022 and should end by November of 2022. And that concludes our presentation to you today. We're certainly appreciative of the Great Stone Viaduct Historical Education Society and to all of you for attending today. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.